Hey guys, this is Szymon Belach from Ventilaid. So, there is a second wave now starting in Poland, so people are asking about updates more and more frequently, so we will try to give you a bit more updates than we were giving recently. Basically, in few months of the recent past, when we were not so much in front of the camera, we were actually in front of the desks, dealing with all sorts of energy draining stuff like bureaucracy and other legal requirements. Now we are very close to clear out all the technical problems and small details we've found so far on how we want to improve the device, and we are very close to where we would like to start releasing the documentation. Now, just before we do that, we would like to ask for help on making sure that the documentation is correct. So, as you might remember, we were having this idea of being slow in releasing the documentation after our first devices, when they got so popular in the beginning, people started using them in ways that were not proper before they were actually, cleared by doctors as being safe. So we wanted to avoid that, and we wanted to make sure also that we release something that has very little chance of being problematic. So we wanted to clear out all the problems before we release, and now we are fairly confident with what we have, and we would like to also make sure that the documentation is free of problems, as well as build some kind of a frequently asked questions database. So we would like to ask for volunteers to try to replicate the device. So basically we would release the documentation, the source code, the schematics and descriptions and all that stuff to people willing to replicate the device. So at the end I'll more or less tell you how to get in contact with us for that. And once this is cleared, so once we make sure that the documentation is not producing devices that are very different from what we want them to be, and once we make sure that this is clear and understandable for people in different workshops and different circumstances than we are at, only after that we would like to finally, publicly release that. So let me give you a few details of what we would hope you to be able to do in order to try to replicate the device. It has the electrical part, it has the source code, the software part, it has the mechanical part. So we are searching for teams that are able to work on all those three fronts at the same time. I can imagine this being one person. It will be easier for you if you are more than one person. It might be easier for you if you are part of some kind of hackerspace or R&D, because you're gonna need several tools. Probably the most limiting one of them will be a mill. So we're gonna need you to be able to mill from the aluminum parts more or less like this. There are not many of them, only one piece in the device, but you have to be able to build that. Then we also need you to be able to build electrical circuits. We'll provide you with all the design and bill of materials, but soldering you'll have to do yourself. So yeah, it focused, okay. So as you see, this is SMD components. This is not the final board. There are some components that are not being used right now, so we will simplify the board. But this is just to give you an overview of how easy or how difficult, depending on your point of view, and how it is on building that. And then the last part, the last tool you're gonna need is obviously a 3D printer. You might use it to print the case. This casing is from the sheet metal, so if you have a break for sheet metal, that's nice, but if you don't, you can just print the box if you have 3D printer big enough. The most complicated part to print is casing for the blower, so for centrifugal blower. It has curved surfaces inside, so you have to be fairly competent with your FDM 3D printer. FDM is enough. I mean, it will be kind of challenging to make it certified, but for the prototyping and for the validation, FDM is good enough. If you have nicer ones, that's also good. We also would hope you to have some skills. Probably the most important one would be having at least some experience working with documentations stored in Git, but I hope if people have 3 previous prerequisites, they also have this one covered. And that's basically it. So yeah, I've mentioned you the tools, I've mentioned you the skills. It would be very helpful if you are able to, if you have experience in at least one of those 3 fields, so that you can double check whether we made some errors. I'm sure there is also always some error to be found, so the more eyes looking at them, the better. And then what else? Yeah, we would also want you to be able to communicate in English. That's fairly important. That's going to be the language we will be speaking with this group. So the idea would be that as soon as we have the group of groups, and as soon as we have the documentation already put together, which is ongoing right now, we would be distributing the documentation to those people. Then we would be hoping for them to try to build. We would be in constant touch with them. We would probably have some kind of meetings, well, virtual meetings, unfortunately, to clear out the possible problems and listen to suggestions on improvements and all that stuff. And then once we have some sort of conclusion and we see that they succeeded in replicating, we make sure that it is clear and simple how to follow the documentation. Only then we would be hoping to release that to general audience. This is in order to make sure that it doesn't end up that if you take slightly different components somewhere else, the device doesn't function as we want it, because we want it to be safe first of all. So let me just double check if there is anything I've missed. Seems like not. So yeah, we're going to be trying to produce a little bit more updates for you right now, and we're going to try to finalize the documentation as soon as possible. So if you are able to help us on that, we are very happy to hear from you. Just send us an email. Yeah, I forgot about this one. We want those volunteers to send us an email. So if you could just write a few lines, not too many of them, on who you are, where do you come from, I mean, not where you come from, where you are, which country, because we would like to have some kind of a broad distribution of that, and whether you are part of some kind of an institution. So if you are part of some hackerspace, if you are part of some R&D department of this or another company, or some scientific or academic institution, because we would like to again have some kind of different backgrounds coming together on that, to make sure that people from different experiences can all understand the documentation clearly. And that's probably it. So just stay safe with the second wave now sort of starting, and keep your head up, and see you soon. Thank you.